and peppers and eggplants and cauliflower and broccoli and all the house plants that are or all the plants that you're going to use for your vegetable garden. It's really it really looks nice now, and it's time for people to start coming in now. Might be a little bit early to plant the tomatoes out unless you're going to protect them, and you can protect them by just throwing a blanket over them or by putting some kind of a protection over them if it's going to freeze at night. But it's time to get them and then take them out during the day and then bring them in at night, because that way they'll harden off. They'll get more used to the wind and the sunlight and the cloudy weather, and where they are right now, they're in a greenhouse where there is very little air movement, and they're kind of soft, and so what you got to do is toughen them up before you put them out, so that when you do get them in the garden, they don't have any transplant shock. So lots of things going on. Bare root room is open, and we've got a great supply of bare root, so now's the time to get it in the ground before the hot weather comes. It takes about 10 days to 2 weeks for a new shrub or a fruit tree or raspberries or grapes or whatever you're getting from the bare root room. It takes about 10 days to 2 weeks for those roots to become active, and so you want to get them in the ground while it's still cool outside, so that when the tree hits the outdoors, it's cool and it doesn't break dormancy real fast, so it gives it a chance to get established before it has to take up a lot of water. And so quite important to soak the roots for 24 hours before you put them in the ground. You put some root stimulator in the water that you soak them in, and then you keep the soil around the plant quite moist. Water every other day or every day for about that 10 days, because they're just taking in water by greatest to less supply. But then the hair roots start coming out, and the plant actually starts actively taking up water. And then you back your watering off to like every other, every third or fourth day. And then as the plant is established and growing, once a week is enough watering. And if you water right, you want to water heavy, let the hose run on it for a while, and then let it dry out between waterings, because you don't want to keep the soil pores completely plugged with water so that the roots can't breathe. So water heavy, let it dry out between waterings, kind of like you do with everything, is the house plants and the garden and things like that too.
And that's just typical for just touching the surface, and if it sticks to your finger,
yeah,
and
you
it's
touch
still
the
moist.
surface on it and it's moist, you can feel moisture, you don't have to water. And then you wait until it feels dry, and then you water good and heavy, so that, kind of like rain, when rain comes down, it makes things kind of muddy for a while, and then they dry out, and then you get rain again. And so you're trying to do that sort of thing. And a lot of people now with the raised bed gardens and actually with their gardens, they're putting in your trickle irrigation, which can also improve your garden significantly, especially if we get a long, prolonged dry spell, where you can water it, keep the plants growing. So, yeah. So, brought up the hanging baskets. We've got petunias in one, and we've got calibrachoa and verbena and Biden's in the other one, and they look really
smell.
pretty. Yeah.
They really are something. You always have such a phenomenal supply of baskets, and the greenhouse is open as well. And you got a pretty good mix of flowers and vegetables there.
We sure do, yeah. And it won't be long, and the perennials will be out. We have those outdoors, so we want to make sure that we're not going to get a hard freeze on them before we put them out. But they'll be out probably by the weekend, and you can come and get them and do the same thing with the perennials that you do with the annuals. Put them out during the daytime and bring them in at night for a week or so, and then plant them, and away they go.
We'll probably get to more tomato talk and hopefully
Okay.
getting them into the ground. We could also talk about garlic, planting potatoes, even cutting flowers. But let's go to the phones right now and say good morning, caller. What is your question for the garden doctor?
Hello?
Good morning.
Hi.
Hi. I got a question about asparagus. I got a bag of Princep 80W,
Okay.
but on the bag it's kind of scratched out, and I can't read it. You know how much to put on?
Well, Princep is one of those chemicals that we used to recommend for asparagus and other things. I don't have that information with me. I know that Princep is the chemical in it, and it does work really well on asparagus, but as far as how much you use, I don't have that off the top of my head, and it's a certain amount per square foot, so I don't know if you could go online and find out, maybe put that, the name of the chemical into Google and see if you can. I'm sure that you'll probably find the directions for diluting it. But that is a chemical that's been withdrawn from the market. We can't get Princep anymore. So, I guess,
Do you have to put it up before the grass and that emerged, or?
it is a pre-emergent, yep. And so, yeah, you got to get it on pretty soon to make it work well.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for that question. Let's go to the other line and say good morning, caller. What is your question for the garden doctor?
Good morning. Actually, I have two questions, if I could, please. Number one, if I thatched my lawn, everything like that, but now is it worthwhile throwing grass seed around? I did not put any weed killer on the lawn, but does it pay to throw grass seed around, just to throw it around the entire lawn without really, aerating it or anything like that, or is it just throwing money away by just throwing seed out on the lawn?
No, if you've got areas where the grass is quite thin, overseeding it's called, with a good grass seed, when the grass is dry, because if you don't want to put it on when there's dew on the grass, because then the seed will stick to the grass blades. But if you've got areas that are pretty thin in the lawn, overseeding is very helpful, and get it down to the, get it down on the soil, and then maybe watering. We've been in a period of time which has been perfect for starting seed, because the soil is warm enough that the seed will germinate, and we've had the moisture that we've needed to keep it from drying out. So, yeah, overseeding is a good practice if you've got a thin lawn. It will thicken it out very well. And the other thing that will thicken it out is putting fertilizer on, because grasses forms rhizomes, and those rhizomes will spread and fill the lawn in.
Okay, and even without really truly adding more soil into their topsoil, or spreading around. Because really the lawn, the ground was not worked up totally, but again, I had raked it up, I thatched it, the whole works.
Yeah,
Just
no.
again, just throwing seed out there. Hopefully some of it will take and will just work its way in the soil. And
Yep, and the advantage that you have is that you don't have to put down the straw, because the grass that's there actually acts as a nurse crop, so that the soil won't dry out as fast if we get a windy, dry weather. So
Gotcha.
overseeding is a good thing where your lawn is thin.
Okay, so it's not just throwing my money away.
No, it's not. Nope.
Okay, and one last question real quick here, too, if I could. Boxwoods, boxwood bushes, or whatever, are they a good bush for around, in this zone, around our area? I know they're big around Virginia and around down that area, warmer weather.
We're on the borderline for boxwood. The problem that we have with boxwood is that it's an evergreen. It's called a broadleaf evergreen. It has leaves, but they stay on the plant year round. And the problem that we have is that if we have a very windy, cold winter, especially the first couple of years where the roots aren't down established and you didn't water them well in the fall, the leaves tend to brown up. Now, the natural winter color for boxwood is sort of a brownish green, but If it's really exposed, what I recommend with people that want to try boxwood is to cover the boxwood with a single layer of burlap for the winter, for the first couple winters, because that burlap will let some sunlight through, but yet it'll keep the wind from drying that foliage out. So, yeah, you're on the borderline here, but I've seen boxwood in this area done very well. And so once you get through the first couple of years, you should be fine with it. But water it heavy in the fall so that it takes up as much water as it can in the fall, and it should do well.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for all your information.
And thank you for calling.
Thank you for those questions. I appreciate it. And we haven't really brought it up yet, but what hardiness zone are we in right now?
We're in 4 or 5.
So in between.
Yeah. We can grow zone 5 plants here where it's kind of protected. And especially with perennials, if you're growing a zone 5 plant, a good 6-inch mulch over top of them for the winter after they go dormant will help them out significantly.
So extra mulch for perennials is probably a must.
Yeah, if it's a zone 5 plant. There are a lot of plants like daylilies and, a whole bunch of them that are perfectly hardy here. If it's a zone 5 plant, I would be sure that you mulch it for the winter with, 5 or 6 inches of hay or not hay, but clean straw.
Clean straw. 885-4446 is our number. Also, you can text us the question, 887-9595. And you mentioned daylilies in that example. And one of the videos that you posted, YouTube short, on the Garden Doctor channel, check it out right now, is cutting daffodils. What is the right way to cut flowers when we're preparing maybe a homegrown bouquet for someone?
Yeah, for daffodils, the best way to do that is to get your hand down near the base of the plant and just pull it. And the bulb will kind of let go of it. Then you put it in water for a couple of hours. And if you cut a daffodil, you'll notice that there's a substance that comes out the bottom of the stem. And what during the first couple of hours, that will get leached out. And then when you change the water and put clean water in, they'll last much longer. So, yeah, daffodils are kind of at peak bloom right now. And so they'll last a couple days longer if you do that. You can cut. I mean, there's no problem with cutting daffodils either, but the preferred way is to just pull them right out of the bulb.
What other flowers would we want to maybe put them into water for a couple hours before refreshening that water again?
It's the only one I know of that does that.
That is the only one?
Yep, it's the only one. I mean, tulips, there are a lot of tulips coming out now, and you just cut them. Now, when you're cutting the spring flowering bulbs, you want to leave as much of the leaves as possible because you need the leaves of those plants to put back the energy that it took to flower, so that when they're forming their flower buds in September of the prior year, they'll have the energy that they need. So with tulips, you don't want to take the leaves off until they start to brown a little bit, and when you tug on them, they actually form what's called an abscission zone, which the cell walls dissolve in that area, and they kind of actually pull out quite easily. If you're pulling on them and the bulb seems to be coming with them, just leave them for a little while, because when they're ready to let go, that means that the bulb has enough energy so that it'll blossom nice next year.
Well, I wish Benny, the four-legged gardener, would have known that before he chewed up all those tulip leaves the other week. Let's go back to the phones, 885-4446, and say good morning. What is your question for the garden doctor?
I got another daffodil question. My daffodils get a lot of green leaves, but very few blossoms. What causes that?
Okay, what I would recommend doing right now is getting a bulb booster type fertilizer. Some of them just say bulb booster on them, but bone meal is excellent, something that has phosphorus in it. I think what's happening is that the leaves are now, did you take the leaves off?
Oh, no, not yet.
Well, don't take them off. I mean, you've got to let them go dormant naturally. So it's usually the mid to the end of June, when those leaves have done enough photosynthesis to make the bulbs blossom the next year. So if you go through your daffodils right after they blossom and cut all the leaves off, you're not going to get many flowers because they need to have the energy restored to those bulbs so that they can make the flower primordia, they're called
Hey, one more question. How is the best way to control pampas grass without killing the whole clump?
One of the things you can do with some grasses is take a 5-gallon bucket and cut the bottom out of it and put it in the ground and then plant the grass inside that bucket, and the bucket will act as a border. And you can put the bucket all the way in the ground. They won't jump over it. Put it so that it's right at the surface of the ground. Otherwise, with pampas grass, you can take a shovel to it and cut, half of it out or whatever you want to get out of it, so you make it smaller, and it'll be just fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions. I believe we have another caller on the line. Let's go right there and say good morning.
Good morning.
What question do you have for the garden doctor?
My question is, do they have the garden vegetable plants in the Randolph store yet?
Yes, we do. They put them out a couple days ago, and so we have a very good selection of tomato plants and pepper plants and all of the cole crops. And now's a good time to get them so that you can harden them off before you put them in the ground. But yes, they are available. I think we had
You also have beaver dam pepper there?
we do.
That's
We
great.
have some of the beaver dam pepper.
Oh,
So,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
yep,
thank you so much for that question. You do have the beaver dam peppers there.
we sure do.
Have you tried them? What do you think about them so far?
I like them. I mean, they're mildly hot. They form a pretty pepper if you let them go past the green stage. And so, yeah, that's an heirloom variety that I'm not exactly sure what the history. I suppose somebody in Beaver Dam would know that, right?
Yeah.
But yes, we do have the Beaver Dam pepper. We've grown the plants and harvested the seed, and so, yeah, we do have them.
This is the Garden Doctor. The following is a paid program. The views and opinions expressed are solely that of Jung's Garden Center, not WBEV, ESPN, nor Good Karma Brands. Well, Dick, I'm excited to show you my mushroom that recently got a special introduction on Monday, but you mentioned phosphorus levels in the soil. Why do plants need phosphorus? What crucial role does it play?
Well, phosphorus is the element that keeps the root growth happy. Now, I know that they have problems with runoff with phosphorus, but when you use it correctly, when you incorporate it into the soil, you don't get any very little of it running off. And for instance, with potatoes, I always use some phosphorus in the soil, like bone meal. Bone meal is an excellent source of that. I kind of lace the furrow with that, and then I put the pieces in, or I've actually got some growing in buckets now, and I've got some growing in a cardboard box. And the first thing that I did was, after I put the layer of soil in, is I put bone meal on it, and that gets those roots off to a good start, and the plant grows better, and you'll get a much better crop of potatoes. But it's quite important for bulbs so that they can grow healthy and put back the nutrients that they need. They do need a little bit of nitrogen, but if you put too much nitrogen, then they put all their strength into the leaves, not into the bulb. So, yeah.
Well, we've got lots of calls on the line. Let's go back to the phones and say good morning. What is your question for the Garden Doctor?
Good morning.
Morning.
Which one do you have here? You have me?
Yes, yes, we do. We have you.
Okay, I'm streaming, so I didn't know. So
Yeah.
I want to give the gentleman encouragement about the boxwood bushes.
Okay.
I've had them my daughter had them in Milwaukee. I thought, oh, I love those things. And like you said, you got to be careful in this zone. But mine for about 11, 12 years now, and they look great.
Yep. And if you do it right and you get them established and they really don't like to have the southwesterly winds, but if you can plant them on the side of a house where they're a little bit protected from the winds, they do excellent.
You're right. They're right next to my eastern side of my house.
Yeah, and that's probably the best because they get the eastern sunlight and then they're kind of protected from the westerlies that dry things out in the wintertime.
Exactly. That's a good information for him because I think
Sure.
about it. My daughter was also on the east side of the house.
Yep, that's probably the best side.
But I do love them. They're nice bushes. Really adds a nice touch. So.
Yeah, they're very formal, you know, you can clip them and they stay quite short and they make a very nice either specimen plant or you can actually make, out on some of the gardens out in Virginia and places like that, they trim them into square hedges, you know, they actually make gardens with different pathways that are set out by the boxwood. It's a very popular plant out there.
Yeah, I have seen those, but I do have to trim them back every year. They grow quite a bit.
Yep,
I'd say about 3-4 inches a year.
yep.
So,
Wow.
yeah, they do. They must have good soil there and must like that area. So,
Yeah.
like you said, I can keep them shorter. So,
No, thanks for calling.
you bet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you found great success with those. Let's go back to the other phone and say good morning. What is your question for the garden doctor?
Hey, garden doctor. We got one of these amaryllis plants in the house.
Okay.
And it just got done flowering and stuff now, and it's all done with that.
Okay.
What do we do with that stem? Do we cut that off or leave it or what?
Yeah, you can cut the stem off as soon as it's, the flowers fade, and what you'll find is that they'll start throwing out some leaves. Now, it's too soon to plant them outside or to take them outside, but what you want to do is wait until the danger of frost is gone, and then put them outside in a sunny location. You can either leave them in the pots, or you can actually put them in the ground. And then before you get a hard frost on them next fall, bring them indoors and let them go dormant. And they go dormant by not watering them and not paying any attention to them, and maybe watering them once a month just so they don't absolutely dry out. And then in November, December, you can bring them out and put them, pot them up if they're not in pots, and the flower stalk will come. And this is amaryllis is a good example of the reflowering. You have to have them outside in a nice sunny area to get them to rebloom, because they have to put the energy back into the bulb that they expended throwing that flower bud out. And it's a good idea with amaryllis to give them a little extra fertilizer in August and September, because that's when they're forming the flower buds inside the bulb for the next year. So, yeah, just put them in a sunny location. You can either plunge the pot, you can leave the pot out, and then just keep them watered and fertilized, and you'll have great success with them.
Should I cut that stem, leave a couple inches of it, or?
No, you cut it right above the bulb.
Good.
Yeah, because it'll dry up. It'll dry up anyway.
And then as far as fertilizer, can I use some of that fertilizer that I would use like on my onion bulbs too, or no?
Sure. Yep, that would be
Okay.
great.
Other, I got 10-10-10 too if I...
I wouldn't use 10-10-10. That's a pretty hot
too much?
fertilizer. That's
Okay.
meant more for grasses and corn and asparagus and things like
Okay.
that. But something that's got the second number is higher than the first or the third number.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much for that question. And we've got another text coming through, Dick. Should we be fertilizing the perennials that are coming up now, like peonies or hostas?
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't want to use a high nitrogen fertilizer. You want to use we've got a fertilizer at the garden center called Fertilome's Rooting and Blooming, which has more phosphorus than, but it has a little bit of nitrogen and a little bit of potassium in it, and that's a very good fertilizer for blooming plants, because it really helps the health of the plant, and yet it doesn't overstimulate them to grow, because if you give them like a 10-10-10 like he was talking about,
Yeah.
10-10-10 is a very hot fertilizer. It has too much nitrogen in for most plants, and it tends to make a lot of leafy growth, and it tends to forget to blossom, and so that's why you don't use it on bulbs, or you don't use it in on tomatoes. If you put 10-10-10 on tomatoes, they'll grow 10 feet tall, but they'll they won't have any tomatoes on until September, you know, and by then you've lost most of your season. So you want to use a tomato fertilizer for tomatoes and peppers and eggplants and things like that, and then as far as the perennials and the other things, just a really regular, well-balanced fertilizer, a 5-10-5, or you know, you just look at the fertilizer numbers, and they can tell you exactly what you're putting on.
Taking your calls for the Garden Doctor, 885-4446. Got another one here. Let's go back to the phones and say good morning. What is your question today?
Hi, I have 4 cherry trees, and so far they're budding out with leaves, but
Okay.
I haven't had any blossoms. Does that mean there's no cherries?
Probably.
They were budding out, and then we had that cold weather.
Yeah, the flowers tend to be, on cherry trees, tend to come out first, and so if they're leafing out and there's been no flower buds, you're not going to get any cherries. And
Last year, I think we had a handful of them, and that was it. So is there
Yeah.
anything I can do to correct that, or?
yeah, there is, the Garden Doctor baseball bat.
I heard about that last year, too, and I was wondering if I should do that.
Yes.
Is this the time to do it now?
If they're 3 or 4 years old and they haven't given you a good blossom, now's the time to do it. And you can either do it by taking a carpet knife or you know, a razor blade and cutting halfway around the tree. That's all you have to do. You can actually go all the way around the tree, and it will reknit right away. But I always tell people halfway, because that's enough to shock them into their adult state. But or a baseball bat, just, you know, like I say, do it at night so your neighbors don't report you for
Being a
being
tree.
bad to your plants. But yeah,
Go ahead.
now, when they are 3 or 4 years old and they haven't done a lot of fruiting, that's a good way of making them fruit.
Okay, because the first 2 years we had them, or 3, they blossomed and they had lots of cherries on them. And now the last few years we haven't had any. So.
Okay, well, that will help.
Okay, I'll try that.
Okay.
This is better. I think I'd get a better use out of the baseball bat at this point. I'll try them both. I'll try on different trees.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, and if you need help, I think you have more than enough experience with a baseball bat. You can
Oh, yes.
probably assist.
Yep.
Well, speaking of fruit stick, as I hoist this up there, as mentioned before, I saw the Mushroom Man over the weekend, and you do have some mushrooms that you get from a supplier online that people can always check out. But Dick, have you ever seen a mushroom log like this before?
I've seen logs. I've seen them where they stack them up and do this outdoors. I guess I've never seen one like this, but yeah. The big thing is to just keep them happy, so that the fungal mycelia grows, and then once they start to mature, then they start throwing out the mushrooms, which are the fruiting bodies of fungus. So anytime you see a mushroom, you know that there's a fungus working in that area. So usually it's on wood or something that's decaying that you'll find them. And so, you know, for this log, I would say its home should be probably 65 to 70 degrees, probably in the dark, because mushrooms like dark, moist, humid places. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll see. This is kind of an experiment as we go along. But I will say I was really excited because one of the best things I found at Jung's was that mushroom compost, and I'm a big fan of that because there's like stones and twigs in there, things of varying sizing, a lot of organic material. So when I was transplanting some plants, I was using that as a bit of a help.
Sure.
But as you mentioned with the bone meal and maybe blood meal could also be thrown into this. When we're transplanting to our gardens, should we sprinkle a layer on the bottom, or how should we add that to the soil?
It's better to mix it in with the soil that you put, dig your hole, put it on top of the soil that you're going to put around it, and then mix it in a little bit before you put it back in, so that you don't have it all in one spot. The compost is actually a byproduct of mushroom. You know, it's the mushroom soil that's left over after they've harvested the mushrooms. So it's decomposed, basically, is what it is. And so makes excellent soil amendments because it has the organic matter in it. It's the place where nutrients are held, and there's a lot of nutrients in it, and it improves the soil also. And that's one of the reasons that I do a lot of composting, because the compost really aids your garden in many different aspects. You know, it holds the water better, it holds the nutrients better, it improves the texture of the soil, it makes your plants happy so they grow well. In fact, what I usually do with my compost pile is when I put the leaves and the things that I use in there, I add fertilizer to the compost pile, and that kind of substitutes for the green material. You know, they talk about browns and greens and things like that.
Yeah.
The fertilizer would be considered a substitute for the greens, because the greens are where the nutrients are that help decompose the browns. And so I just use fertilizer for that. And then the nice thing about that is that once it's gone through the compost pile and it's gone through the process of composting, and the heat is kind of gone down, because, you know, when a compost pile is working, you can actually, when you move it, you can see steam coming out of it because it generates a lot of extra heat. But when that heat starts to go away, it's because the compost is ready to use. And then when you use it on the garden, instead of putting raw fertilizer on the garden, you're putting the fertilizer on in an organic form, and it becomes more slow release, and the plants will use it much over a longer period of time.
Are there any plants that we could maybe grow just for the purpose of adding to our compost pile of compost-related crops?
Well, corn stalks, I mean, there's a lot of organic matter in corn stalks, and a lot of the grass clippings. If you mix grass clippings with other brown material, they make a good compost starter. Now, if you compost just grass clippings, they get kind of slimy because there's too much nitrogen there. There's, you know, it just it's too much greens. You have to have some browns with the greens. And so if you're composting grass clippings, you want to add straw or something, mix it with it. When I use grass clippings, I use them as a mulch in the garden rather than putting them into my compost pile, because they actually make a nice mulch. They dry out, and they compost more slowly when you're putting them in a thin layer to keep the weeds down and keep the moisture in.
Do you apply the grass clippings as a mulch solely just the grass clippings, or do you allow them some time to kind of cook off, or maybe?
Nope, I just put
fresh?
them on fresh, yeah, because they'll dry out, and a thin layer of grass clippings is not going to get slimy like they would if you're trying to compost a whole bunch of them.
Okay. 885-4446, if you have a question for the Garden Doctor in our last 10 minutes here. Dick, a video that was posted on the Garden Doctor YouTube channel just about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours ago, was all about planting potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
Potatoes are still in the garage right now, just growing seeds, waiting for that time when the soil drains through a little bit right now. But what are some tips to keep in mind planting potatoes?
Well, if you want to cut them, they should be cut right now, and then wait a couple days, or at least 2 or 3 days, to let them dry off. It's getting time to have the potatoes in the ground. I must admit that my garden has not got its potatoes done yet, but I did plant some pails. I'm going to be growing potatoes in several different ways, and I did a video on growing them in a 5-gallon bucket and in a cardboard box, which is going to be sitting on the soil in my garden, and we'll see how it works out in the fall. You know, on the YouTubes, there's a lot of potato videos out there, and so we're trying to see if I can duplicate what they do.
That's funny you mentioned that. My dad was also talking about somebody that grew like a plant in a cardboard box. Is there anything you have to do for that? Do you fill it up with soil? Or?
Yeah, that's what you do.
And that's it?
Compost, you know, not black soil. If you're going to use some black soil, You want to mix compost or peat moss or something with it so that it's more, it's looser. You wouldn't want to put just black soil in it. My box is just pine bark. We pot a lot of our nursery stock in pine bark, peat moss, and sand in a mix like that, and that's what I used in the box. And so we'll see how they do. We'll have a. It's kind of funny when you're doing these videos on different things and that one isn't right. We'll have to cut that, 'cause
Yeah.
when we were uncovering my roses, the first one I picked, I uncovered it was completely dead.
Oh, no.
So we had to start over.
Well,
So the garden doctor has failures too.
pruning digitally is a little bit different than pruning in real life,
Yep.
but
So-
they're both valuable skills.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the phones and say, good morning. What is your question for the garden doctor?
Hi, thank you. I have critters in the yard that have made holes and trails. And first of all, what do I do about them? And then I suppose they've eaten the roots of the grass. Then I have clumps of some other kind of grass that I suppose had killed the grass and something else is coming up.
Yeah.
What do I do? Can I bring a clump of that in someday and have you look at it?
Sure. I'm not in Randolph all the time. In fact, tomorrow I'll probably be in Stoughton, and Friday I'll be in Appleton. But the people in the garden center can help you with that. I'm not the only one at Chung's that knows what they're doing.
Okay.
The area where the grass is loose, where you can pull it up, that's a sign that voles have been working under the surface of the soil.
Right.
And what the voles are after is the grubs that are in the soil. And so the way to get rid of the voles is to use a grub killer that you can put on with the fertilizer, or you can put it on as a separate application. And if you kill the grubs, the voles go away because they don't have any food. As far as the critters that are burrowing in your perennials or wherever they're burrowing, there are things that you can use in there that I think they still have them in the store, but it generates a gas that seeks down in the tunnels and they bury themselves. But I just keep filling the holes, I guess, and that will encourage them to find a spot where they can burrow and they won't be bothered. It's a real problem. In the nursery we have areas where we have woodchucks and things like that, and we just keep covering the holes.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you so much for that question, and we can maybe take one more call right now, but as we wind down, this is our third to last episode for the spring edition of the Garden
Yeah,
Doctor.
it's coming to a close.
It is indeed. It's been a really exciting season so far, and one thing that I have to prepare for is that I've noticed the tomato seedlings I have, the true leaves have started to come in, but I have some pods now, and this is like a 72 rack that I got from
Right,
Jung's.
right.
They might have 3, 4 tomatoes, all the seeds I put in there sprouted. Do I have to pick and choose? Can I save?
No,
The
yeah,
seedlings?
what you do is you dig in there and you work the roots, so that you separate them, and then put one in each of the cells.
So I can still massage the
Yeah.
dirt.
Take a pencil and just dig them out, and then kind of pull them apart. You may lose a few of the roots, but tomatoes are really tough. And then you just make a hole and stuff the roots in. And in fact, yesterday, that's all I was doing down at Stoughton, is pulling the tomatoes out of our seedling trays and putting them into 4-packs,
Okay. Wait. So could I transplant them into another seed tray? Do I just want to transplant them into peat moss? Can I add some of the mushroom compost or like some
Yeah, you
compost in the
can,
manure?
or I think you bought some of the peat-based potting mix, right?
I got the organic one. Yeah.
Yeah, then you can just use that.
I don't need to add anything
No,
to it again.
nope,
Okay.
nope.
Should I add anything to it?
Not really.
Okay.
No, and when they get about 2 or 3 sets of true leaves, then take them outside and let them grow outside and bring them in at night. And then when you plant them out, they'll probably be just right.
Well, groovy. Well, we got about 3 minutes left. We might be able to sneak in this last call. Let's go there and say good morning. What is your question for the garden doctor?
Yeah, I bought some maple trees and I planted them, and a branch of my neighbor's tree fell off and broke the top off of one. Will that grow or?
Okay, what you'll do is, near the top of the tree, there'll probably be a branch coming out. And what you want to do is take that branch and kind of pull it so that it's vertical. You know, use masking tape or electrical tape and pull it so that it goes back vertical, and that will take over as the leader of your tree.
All right.
Okay, do you understand? I mean,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, and when the side branches first come out, they're very pliable, so if you gently pull them over so that they're vertical,
Just
and
pull
then,
one
and then,
over it.
and then just put masking tape on, and by the time the masking tape deteriorates, that branch that was a branch will now be your leader. And then, if you want to cut it off, cut the leader off an inch above where that new leader is established.
All right. Just pull one branch, right?
Yep, just one branch over,
All right. Thank you.
and thank you for calling.
Thank you so much for that question. And winding down with the last minute or so, Jung's has 7 different locations.
Yep, we have 7 stores now. There are 3 of them are in Madison, Sun Prairie, North Madison, South Madison. The newest one is Stoughton, and then we have Stevens Point, Randolph, and Appleton. So store hours in Randolph are 8 to 5 Monday through Saturday. We're not open on Sunday in Randolph. The stores in Madison are 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 on Saturday, and 10 to 3 on Sunday.
Well, Dick, the greenhouse is open and the ballroom is, the Bear Root Room open at
Oh, yeah.
Randolph.
Yep, and you should get in there and get them as fast as possible, because the quicker you get them in the ground, the better they're going to do for you this year.
Exciting season. Dick, cannot wait for next week again.
Okay,
With
thank you.
with the Garden Doctor. That will do it for the Garden Doctor program on 95.3 WBEV.